you?
Hey Joe, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Um,
Busy?
yeah, busy life, eh? You know how it goes. Sounds like you've been
I
pretty
do.
busy too.
Yeah, you're my fourth appointment today,
Wow, that's brilliant.
and I've got my grief meeting that I'm co-hosting. I'm trying to find my earplugs. What have I done with them, Jason? I was all organised for the phone call.
Oh, thank you for reminding me because I got back late from work and I was rushing around and forgot all about it until you flicked the message. So yeah, but
Perfect.
hey, I love your messages and love your texting and you've been a big part of my story, with Wally and Dylan, and I tell everyone about you and the story, and everyone's touched. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing the love.
Nah, no worries.
Thank you for sharing the love.
So we're still carrying him with me. So yeah, he's still doing his work.
It's so beautiful, so beautiful. Yes, and I'm fortunate to be able to notice that in my everyday too, Jason. I'm really grateful for that.
Yeah.
Really grateful for that. I work really hard for my son Dylan's death not to define me.
Yeah.
Though it's completely changed everything. Not everything about me. My heart's always been my heart, but it's definitely growing my awarenesses.
Yeah. Can you tell me a bit more about Dylan and who he was, and obviously he's very close to you in your heart, and what kind of boy he was, and what kind of person?
Total mischief. Total mischief.
Yeah.
And he would make everybody laugh, Jason. His goal was to bring light and love to everybody, and mostly at his own cost. And so he would do all sorts of wild, crazy things to get his friends to giggle. He would drop everything, borrow a car, hitchhike, or walk miles if a friend reached out to him and needed help.
Wow.
And even strangers. I remember being told a story about how he picked up a hitchhiker on his way to Tauranga, between Owakuni and Tauranga, and the hitchhiker was going to the Coromandel somewhere, so he drove to the Coromandel, drove to the Coromandel, dropped the person off to make sure they were safe and they'd arrived, and then went back to Tauranga again.
Wow, that's pretty cool. He sounds like a cool boy.
Yeah.
It's a lot of the stories I hear. It's really special people, characters, and usually a lot of the times they are the ones that are making other people laugh and happy and stuff. And unfortunately, they hide their pain under that sometimes, and people look for them for the strength, and just when they need that strength, they it's probably more of a thing that possibly that they don't they look to helping people rather than being helped, and it sounds like he's that type of character, eh? How did he get his nickname, Wally?
So Owakuni is a really small town, as you know, and we'd not long moved here. I think we'd lived here for maybe a year. We've owned a property here for several years and would come and go for the winter season. We set up a family accommodation business.
Yeah.
But we decided to move here permanently, and Dylan came home from school on the first day back for the school year and said, right, that's it, Mum. I'm over it. It's so overrated. Another boy, because there were two Dylans and they were really good mates.
Yeah.
Another boy had moved to town and his name was Dylan as well. So he was horrified to be a third Dylan. It was so funny. So I said, oh, really, son? So what have you decided? He said, you've got to call me Wallace now. My name's Wallace.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh my God, Dylan, where did Wallace come from?
Yeah.
And I just can't get Wallace and Gromit out of my head. I always gave him stick about it, and I don't know where it came from. He decided, and he went to school and told all the teachers and refused to be answered. Like I would call him Dylan if he was walking down the hall or something, and he'd just completely ignore me. And then I'd be saying Dylan, and then I'd get grumpy, not realizing, and he'd say, "My name is Wallace."
Oh, that's so funny. Oh, William.
And I had to send, I had to write a letter to the school because the teachers refused to call him Wallace because his name was Dylan. So I had to write a letter to the school and take it in. And so I said to all the teachers, because I used to be a teacher aide and help out and all of that, as you do.
Yeah.
And, I said, don't you dare, none of you are all sworn to secrecy about, changing your name by deed poll. It's fine to write a letter and encourage his individuality, but we are not doing deed poll.
What a character to do that. William Wallace, he sounds like a William Wallace type character as well.
Yeah.
I know you haven't got too much time, Joe, with your next meeting as well.
It's okay.
Obviously,
we've got time.
Obviously, we lost him early. How old was Wallace when he?
I know, this is me. So I think Dylan, Wally, Wallace, because all his friends ended up, called him Wally. All of them do.
Yeah.
But I'm his mother, and I have the privilege of calling him many things, and I named him Dylan, so I'm comfortable with that.
Yeah.
But he was 19. Sorry, he died on the 1st of December, 2019, and he was 19.
Yeah.
And there feels like some sort of significance in that. And his birthday, his 20th birthday, was on the 10th of December.
Wow.
And he died over in Australia, Jason. So I had to fight really hard to get him home. And we were all, and our whole community, because, we all have an awareness of each other, regardless of if we know each other or not. And, the whole community was absolutely blown. And so... blanket here. Can you see that blanket? It's a part of the blanket.
Oh yeah.
It's a Dylan blanket. I kind of got stuff for the kids to do, and we tried to get Dylan home for his birthday, and unfortunately we missed out by one day. But what we did on his birthday was I got all the kids to do tie-dye t-shirts and things, which they wore to the funeral.
Wow.
So I kind of had, I remember holding, needing, in my grief, needing to hold space for the community, but I didn't want to be encouraging booze, and it's not my scene, and I just don't think those things serve Dylan and his sorrow, so I didn't want to be encouraging those things, but I wanted to have conversations in an open home with the kids in the community. So it was just a fine line.
Yeah. So that would have been quite hard. That just it's hard enough losing someone, but when they're in a different country and you got to bring them home, and your son. I mean, that must have been really tough.
Thank you. It was. Yeah. It was, and unfortunately, because of our circumstances, my husband, when he was a youngster, got into trouble in Australia, so he can't go to Australia.
Well,
and my son was in Australia, and so I was really torn around who's with my son, and my family need me, and my husband, so it's really, it was, thank you, it was a really challenging time, and fighting with all the government departments to try to make it happen.
Well, so that was quite tough, was it? Just to get him home, as in did the government actually put things in place to try and help, or was it really you initiating trying to get the help?
There's just so many departments to deal with.
Yeah.
for a day or more. I didn't even know where my son was, where his body was. I was fighting with where and who and what that all looked like, and they didn't know. The police didn't know either, and so there's just many aspects of departments that have to do their part. And it was Byron Bay where he died. So the magistrate who does all of the court proceedings is actually the coroner and has to sign stuff off. And there was a long weekend, and he just didn't get to my file or our file or whatever it was. And in the end, I got his email because I am assertive.
I bet.
You know, duck. I believe with passion in following my heart and doing what I need to do. But anyway, I emailed the magistrate and said, I'm just a mum, desperate to get my boy home.
Yeah.
What do I need to do?
Yeah. And they gave you the confession. They helped you with that stage.
Then they did their part.
Oh,
they
good.
ticked the box they needed to do so that then it could go into a ripple, you know.
Yeah. So there's obviously, obviously, with what I do with the awareness and with suicide awareness, and especially for our young ones, there's obviously some obstacles, in your situation when he's overseas, and especially when Aussie, they could tidy that up a bit more. Unfortunately, we both know Wally's not going to be the last, of our losing our kids, and that's going to happen in Oz, and especially when they're away from home. I mean, that must have been so tough for him as well. Did you have any indication that he was struggling, or you already mentioned that he was that kind of boy not to really say his struggles? Was he more about keeping it to himself, or did he give you an indication that he was having a few issues?
I have so much to be grateful for, Jason.
Yeah.
I truly have so much to be grateful for because I saw my son.
Wow.
I know my son.
Yeah.
And we had really difficult conversations, as hard as they were. And we had spoken on several times, and he'd broken down with me, over the years. And in fact, I found a letter. So he died in December 2019, but I found a letter that he'd written. And I can't actually recall when it was when I found the letter.
Yeah.
But I found a letter that he'd written in 2016 about how deeply he loved us all and how grateful he was for his beautiful life and things. And so he had a really close friend die by suicide from Tauranga when we lived up there. And he came immediately to me and was just really upset. And so we had spoken about, the trail that gets left behind.
Yeah.
And truly, Jason, I truly believe and know in my heart that Dylan was here longer than he could have been because of the pain he knew that he would leave, because he doesn't want that for us. Yeah. And that's also a part of my inspiration around trying to help others. It's really important to me that I talk about Dylan all the time, and I speak of suicide and the sorrow and the vulnerability that we all are. And I'm not afraid of those difficult conversations, and trying to be compassionate and empathetic without placing my experience and my views onto other people, but also trying to draw them away from the suffering. The pain is always going to be there, and there is no healing, but there is somehow steps towards the light and the love that continues to grow.
Yeah, definitely. That's beautiful. There's a lot of change that's needed, like over in here in New Zealand, with the way our kids get help and how easy it is to access, and so many things that can be done for the long term, to get things right. Obviously it takes time to get things in place. One of the reasons I went and did what I was doing was because the fear of something that we didn't do too well before, obviously lockdowns and mandates. And then we went through a lockdown mandate stage, and the impact on our kids is massive. And I'm really worried about what's coming.
I don't even think we've seen the worst of it yet.
No, it's going to come in a wave, and this, the little bit I'm doing with awareness is just getting that awareness out there, saying we need to hold our health minister responsible about putting things into action now to make sure that there's something starting now, rather than waiting until we get down the track and it's like, oh, our youth suicide's doubled, and that means we've lost too many in between, and that means we're only just starting to put things in place there. So if you could suggest something, to our amazing Andrew Little, and what kind of suggestions would you give him?
That we need to be speaking, that suicide, mental health, people's pain and all of our vulnerability needs to be free-flowing conversations, education, police, whatever it is, however it is. I worked for a while with the Ministry of Social Development as the youth case manager, and so I was at the forefront working with my cases, knocking on the doors at the mental health departments and hospitals, Jason, trying desperately to get help. I worked with Mike King, and we saved some kids together. And there are children alive today, and I see them, and they love me.
Yeah.
And I'm so proud and I'm so grateful for them. But my son is not one of them.
Yeah. I think when I saw you, I gave you a hug and said, I wish I'd done what I did earlier, try and get the awareness out as well. And that's how I look at it as well. It's like, getting things in place and started is so important. And I've done a letter to obviously the health ministers, and I've done it in a wide range. So I did it to opposition leaders as well, and to the mainstream media as well, just to hold them accountable. And to make sure that there is something in place, and to ask them a question of, did they put something in place as in a risk assessment before they did what they did with the mandates and the lockdowns for our kids. And they did do, in 2019, they did do a suicide plan that they put in place, but I've gone through that 2019-2029 suicide awareness plan, suicide prevention plan, and unfortunately a lot of the things that they implemented, like the mandates and the lockdowns, isolated our kids and stopped them doing stuff. So it actually did the opposite of what their own plan was. So I've asked them, A, can they tell me if they've done that risk assessment early on and what it was? B, if they have readdressed their suicide plan that they put in place in 2019-29, and if an action something new that we don't know about. Because if that was their plan, we're in a lot of trouble, because we've actually done a lot of damage. And I'm just hoping. Well, I got two responses. One was acknowledging the email, and then the next one was saying they need a bit more time to answer it. And then that was when the budget came in place as well. So obviously the tracking this, it out a bit. So I'll be doing another email back to them and just adding everyone into it, and just asking them, like, I've given you a bit of time, we need these answers now, and if they don't give that, I'm gonna go down the channel of getting that information that they can't hold back. So but it's
sorry.
Yes.
Can I just say, in my limited experience, that is so wonderful that you were doing that, and that you are reading that, and you're growing your your knowledge and your expectation around accountability with all of that. I really admire you for that. In my limited experience with my role for the ministry, my job was to make my boss look good for her payroll. And I had a file that kept growing, Jason, because I was about my people. I was about my kids and their families, and holding departments accountable and running around the room sessions with all of these departments that had been working with these families for much longer than I had been in my role, but holding it together and demanding, results. What are we doing? I don't care about your statistics. I don't care about your numbers, because they're based on what? They're not actual facts. So what I really admire about what you've done, Jason, with Hope and walking the country is that every step counted, and you were bringing other people with you as you were stepping. And truly, I believe that by having the conversations, that I think that's where the difference comes, because it's not just one email that's being sent, and it's the numbers. I went down to Wellington a couple of times, and to know for myself and to experience, and the difference, whether it's realised or not by many, it does not matter, because the difference was made because of that. And that's kind of what I'm wondering, and stepping my way towards. Perhaps it's about having these platforms, whether they're in community halls or in school halls or whatever it is, where we have discussions about suicide and mental health with families, with people. And it's not about our individual stories as such, because they matter and we value those. But more than that is, how can we help in ways of recognizing, for example, the differences between pain and suffering? How do I live with the guilt that my son has died by suicide? What can I do to reach out and help others who are feeling low, and what is available for them to be supported and feel seen?
And making Wally count, and I say that in a way that, like you said, we look at stats and stuff, and we know the stats are downplayed, but just getting a call. That's okay. We look at stats and stuff, but it's like it doesn't come with a name. A name is so more important. A name is so
popular.
A name is so more important than a stat.
Back off, it's my turn.
I know. It was just a name like Wally's so more important than a stat. Obviously he can help, and what you did when you met me and you told me Wally's story, and I've taken that on, and I've said the story to many people because I thought it was just so beautiful. And I had a friend with me that day, Ben, and it was just a day that he walked with me. So and it was such a good day that he picked, because I dislocated my ankle the night before. So it was so good that he was there. But I told him on that journey, on that day, I said, we're going to meet the people we're supposed to meet, and Wally made us meet. I think it was your daughter first, wasn't it, that put Wally on?
No, it was our friend, the other Dylan's mum.
Oh yeah, no, it was really cool. And then having that connection and see you go past, and then we meet again. He was in tears, I was in tears, and obviously you're in tears, and it's just those beautiful stories, and that's what Wally brings, and it brings a personal touch, and these politicians, when they just look at numbers and they try and downplay it, which is even worse, but every person that we lose has a name, has a family, has a mum, has a dad, and friends, and like you mentioned, Wally lost his friend to suicide, and if we can stop the domino effects of losing these beautiful kids on the way, you know, it's just gonna make it a better place for everyone, and we'll get through those tough times together rather than losing them.
I remember saying, because I stood up at Dylan's funeral and spoke, and I don't know how I did that, but I wasn't alone in doing it. And I had a very strong message about, you know, how we all need to talk and we all need to share, because, you know, he's such a beautiful, bright light, and everybody has just such, at the moment you met him, you loved him.
Yeah.
And I don't just say that because he's my son, but I'm proud that he was and is.
Yeah.
But I believe that instead of expecting people to reach out when they're feeling bad, it's my responsibility, yours and ours as family and community, to actually reach in.
Yeah. That was one of the things I mentioned on the walk, was being proactive with the Save One. So actually looking to find that person that needs help, because we're so busy in life, it hits us later that they gave a sign, but we didn't take it because we're so busy in life, and then we just second guessed it, and then we've lost someone. And if we could all be, like you're saying, which is beautiful, if we could reach in and make sure everyone's okay, it's gonna save lives.
And being more than a good intention.
Yeah.
You know, and those are just such precious and wonderful things, and we can be more.
Yeah.
We can be more.
And add to little things. You know, little things like if I go to a shop and we see a homeless person there, I go say hello, have a talk to them, and make sure they're okay, ask their name. You know, that can save a life, because a lot of the times when you're in tough times, you feel like you're invisible. You feel like you're invisible and no one cares, but there's that one person that might save a life, and that can be us. That could be us at any time, sitting at the dairy out the front, you know, in a bad situation. So like you said, we've got to open up a lot more. We've got to be a lot more. It's a taboo subject, suicide, and I'm not sure why. I think we all feel like we fail if we lose someone. Yeah.
In the death of my son, I have really noticed the isolation that people cross the road, Jason. They don't know what to say. People don't show up. They're all at the funeral with the hoo-ha, and they're gonna be there, and they're gonna, and you don't see or hear from them because of their fear.
Yeah.
It is a lot. It is a lot to ask of anybody to sit with me and my pain.
Yeah, it is.
It's a lot.
And I've always found, obviously, we have a lot to deal with. We have a lot to deal with situations, and obviously you've reached out in that way too to help it, which is brilliant. And what you don't have to say anything sometimes, you know, just a hug, message of a heart. You know, sometimes words aren't the answers. Sometimes it's the compassion. And knowing that you're there, and like I said, you know, definitely show up and just be present, because I think that's one of the things we fail on. We're not present when we're needed, and that just shows it. You know, especially in the final stages where you need to be there, and that's showing that we got to put those fears aside. We've got to put. There's a lot of guilt left, you know, when people go and we always try and think like, what could I have done? And sometimes it's you just got to realize you gotta make sure that person matters enough to try and fight for someone else not to be lost. and
Yeah.
and make sure that they're remembered in that way. Like, you're beautiful. You remember Wally, and I just love your compassion and your passion for him, and he's still with us.
Oh,
You know, he's still
thank you.
he's still with us. He's still with me with hope when I'm carrying hope, and he's still with
Yeah.
me when I'm talking about yourself and our story, and it's like he's alive, and he's on the journey to help and save a few people, which is really neat. I think it's really cool, and I think that's what we got to do. We've got to
Yeah.
we've got to. Sometimes there's nothing you can do.
Yeah.
Sometimes we're just we're gonna lose people that we love because of, not because of us, but because of a wider reason that we're in no control of that, and we only can do the best we can, you know, with what we can do, and if we do, you know, unfortunately lose someone like Wally, we've got to make sure that his name's remembered, and that he can go on and help many. He can save one too. So I think he's saved a few, to tell you the truth, and with yourself as well. I think he's saved quite a few. Sometimes there's reasons that things happen, and sometimes they say, you know, we want to be a star, like a star rugby player or a star, you know, actor or something like that. But sometimes we're the flag bearers for the next person to go there, and that could be Wally could have been a flag bearer. You know, we've lost him. We would love to have had him. We couldn't control losing him, and he can go on and do some amazing things now with his story. So I think it's beautiful. And then I'll never forget him. I'll never forget meeting you on that beautiful day. I think you were the last person I met on that day, by the way, into Waidu. And it was very special meeting you, and it was even more special. It was even more special. Wally started to glow. You know what I mean, on hope, and it was. It's something that in my journey that I'll never forget, and it's something that it kind of just drives me to do, you know, to carry on, and the meaning that I've got Wally on me and yourself backing him. It just makes it even better to go out there and try and stop, you know, people, you know, and stop losing someone. And like I said, I'm pretty sure Wally's done a lot of good, you know, already. So, and yourself.
And even, can I, you know, be so bold as to say he saved people here when he was still here, Jason. So, you know, he just forgot how bright his light was, and amongst sharing it so much.
And that's and that's what I've found. We've lost a lot of good people that were on the good fight, and sometimes obviously when we're out there on the good fight, we're open, we're vulnerable to a lot of people's pain and with loss, and with the fear of what's going to happen. You know, obviously we talked about you know, the impact of what the last two plus years, and things, we both know things aren't in place how they should be right now. And we're definitely gonna see some disastrous effects in the next 2 to 5 years, unless but that's what drives us to do what we're doing, is to try and change that. And we could do the beautiful. Sorry.
It's okay. Trying to make the small differences that we can, and the
Just give me a chance, girl. Oh, give silver and gold. Your love is worth more than diamonds and pearls. I'm a one-stop love shop, giving you your gifts. Got me flying out this world when I'm kissing on your lips, girl. Your body is everything. Your love is